Good morning. Welcome to Karin Clark Gallery in downtown Eugene. And it's a beautiful morning, and this is going to be really fun. Thanks for joining us. We have artist Bets Cole with us today, and her incredible exhibit is up. And it's called Right Angles and Raw Edges, Buildings in the Landscape. And the way this show came about was that I've been following Bet's recent work in the last few years and obsessing over her barns in the landscape in rural parts of Oregon and her European castles and chateaus in the beautiful Tuscan or French landscape. And had been bugging Bets. I was like, I really want to see those. And then the idea evolved that we would do a show that would really focus on her incredible plein air landscapes from these different locations, but that all focused on buildings or some aspect of architecture in the landscape, and which she composes so beautifully. So Bets, thank you first of all for doing all this incredible work, framing it, and allowing us to show the work. And maybe you could start by sharing just a little bit about your artist statement and your ideas about this show.
Thank you. So I encourage people to read artist statements. It's a window into an artist's personality, their focus, what they've been working on, how their minds travel through the process. So I'll just share a little bit of mine. The landscape is nature's canvas, a constant work in progress of shifting line, color, shape, and texture. Humankind also makes its mark upon the land, although with man-made materials. Telephone lines and bird migrations create lines above us, while street lights and stars add diamonds of light to a midnight sky. Architecture and nature are often seen as foes, but they can also be collaborators.
Love that. Well, I want to focus in on a section of the exhibit that is special and the most recent paintings in this show, which are these tiny 5 by 6 inch gouache paintings on panel. And it's a special series, and I think of you as a plein air painter, but these are plein air car paintings. So can you tell us about this special series?
So during the pandemic, in those dreary months of winter, I was just going a little batty and decided, well, I'm going to go plein air painting in my car. And I have a special little setup. I attach my panel to a board, lean it against the steering wheel, put my palette on top of the car holders, the cup holders, and I can paint away. And it's amazing. You can get so much. It's out of just sitting and observing. And I would go into these neighborhoods or out in the country, drive around for about 20 minutes and just sort of find my spot as if I was, a dog looking for that perfect place to lie down, and start painting away. And these came about.
And there's 20 of them, aren't there? Are there?
Yes.
There's 20.
There's 20.
20 of these, which are incredible. To me, I was surprised how, for a small piece, how beautifully developed they are. But it reminds me that, people that aren't artists might not realize this, but just because a painting is small, it doesn't mean that it comes together quickly. You have the same compositional issues, and these are very well developed, very beautiful, moody, painterly pieces. Now, these two that we're focusing in on, are these two of the ones that you actually started on a black ground?
So oftentimes I will gesso the boards beforehand in my studio, and I will and sometimes I use a black gesso. These two were on black gesso. I use gouache to build up layer upon layer upon layer, so that I can bring out the light. And to get intensity in color, there have to be many, many layers. And I love the process of it because it shows your marks. It shows the brush that you're working with. They're intimate, they're revealing.
Yeah, I like especially those two, because you can really see the kind of weather. Like it's definitely like an overcast winter day, but there's just might be a little bit of light peeking through, and that's not easy to capture in painting. And you've done that, where you can just see there's little bits of light that are bouncing off the building. But overall, you kind of know this is in winter. This isn't a summer day by any means. Oh, now we're traveling to Italy.
Oh, and I love to travel, and I love to paint and travel. The two are a great mix for me, and spent a lot of time in Italy. I went to Italy the October before the pandemic arrived, and where I was in the hill towns there.
Okay, so this one is from Orvieto.
Correct.
And that's in Umbria, right?
Tuscany.
Oh, that's in Tuscany. Yeah. Okay. I just love the design of that piece. It was interesting. I always forget this about you, that you have a background, like you were the original founder of the graphic arts program at LCC that I went to in my 20s, and I studied with Thomas Rubik, and it always shocks me, because there's all these people that come in that are your age, that were students of yours, that were design professionals, and it's like, how you don't seem old enough to have been that. But anyway, it's your pieces are so beautifully composed. Oh, this is one of my favorites from Rochefort-on-Terre. This is one of the pieces that goes back the furthest, right?
Well, all these pieces are contemporary. They were done in the last year and a half, 2 years. This one I did start when I did a residency several years ago in France, but I pulled it out of storage because it was not finished or resolved. It is a painting that I used a limited palette, and there are 3 colors that are mixed, and that's it. And I pulled that painting out, and I worked and worked in my studio on it, which I sometimes do if I start a plein air piece. And, I know there's something in there. I loved the site and the spirit of the piece, so I just kept working on it.
Well, also the hierarchy of shape and composition. Can we go back to this piece? It's the cropping of the building, but this larger piece in the foreground, traveling back to these, smaller shapes. I think there's just a suggestion of building in the distance. And also one thing that's unique about Betts's work that I always enjoy and think of with her work is her use of line. She often has visible drawing, whether it's charcoal or graphite, mixed in with the paint. So there's this kind of, immediacy and just really appealing line quality mixed in with the color. And I love the unified aspect of that limited palette, and a reminder that you really can get so much range and variety with so few colors. That's a really powerful way to work. I remember my dad used to talk about that. He'd be like, well, I just use, his name is 3 colors and get that. And I love that here, and definitely a favorite. Speaking of favorites and also European travels, we have this beautiful wall of watercolors that just needed to hang together, I felt. And And, it's interesting. A lot of people have noticed, like some artists will just use oil or just use acrylic. You in this show have watercolors, you have acrylic, and you have gouache. And tell us about your, how do you choose?
Well, I'm a true Gemini. So, it just feels good to flip from water-based media to water-based media. I choose water-based because I am attracted to how it flows, how you can apply, how you can show your brush mark, how you can soften an edge, you can toughen up and make a sharp edge. Watercolor is the medium that I started painting in, and then I started really working in charcoal. I found a really nice marriage between them. Then I went to acrylic and explored acrylics. A site just speaks about the medium that I should use. And gouache is the other water-based, and it tends to be more opaque. Watercolor itself is very transparent. And then acrylic, boy, you can really get opaque. So that's how I choose. It's usually the site that tells me.
Yeah, the watercolors are, there's just a brightness because of really, when you use watercolor correctly, like you have, it's like the white of the paper just shines through and the painting can really glow. Several of these in a row here now are acrylic, and you can see how you can really, layer the paint, and these have a lot of punch. And this one is that on a red, kind of a red paper?
So that's on a Canson. I really like using Canson paper, beautiful colors, and you can let the paper show through and become part of the ambiance. And it's you can paint negatively, which means you can paint the color around the shape.
Oh yeah, so it's like you're painting a red barn, and you're really letting the paper show through and do some of the of the work.
So basically, you are painting the air around it, the sky around the peak and a roof, and I just love that about man-made structures, human structures. They poke through into air, into nature, and create a rhythm and add to the shapes of nature.
Yeah, I love that. There's a beautiful one coming up from Ireland, and I just love the color palette on it. It's one of those paintings that just seems like it was meant to be, but of course, it couldn't have been without you. I just think the color sings, the green against the red, the violet. Tell me about this painting and specifically about the color.
So a lot of the color is based on the color of the panel itself. I oftentimes travel with a portfolio of tone, canvas, and panel. And I go to the site and I go, it sort of feels a little warm, which means the temperature and warm, or earth colors, or the reds. The cools are the blues, the greens. And then when you're mixing color, and applying it to panel, oftentimes you have to mix your colors in a different way than just sort of usually putting it on a white canvas, because the tone of the canvas mixes with the pigment color. Okay. So oftentimes, I start painting, and then the colors just start emerging, and I go with the flow.
Yeah, no, it came out incredible, and that's not easy to do, but you make it look easy. I had someone in here yesterday looking at these small pieces, and they're like, I wonder if these people have any idea that their houses were painted. They're like, and she was kind of looking, she goes, I wish she'd painted my house. She goes, you should let the people know. They'd probably want to come in and buy them. And I was thinking, that's true. Do we go door to door and say, do you know these people that live?
I don't. And I try not to. I try to be just
sort of. On their door.
No, I'm lurking in my car in the dark. I'm usually sort of parked down the street and under a tree or something. And
do you have a hat on, looking, and sunglasses? No.
Right, and oftentimes, there's, it's about their little car and their life, and I just am fascinated by the human mark. You take one house and then the other house down the block is the same house, but it's not. It's the people who live in it, and it's just those little ways of how they drive into the driveway and angle their car, or the potted flowers, and oftentimes I'll make it sunnier, and I'm just happy there, and so I like to project that.
Well, people would probably never think of focusing on, someone might think, well, why would you paint this yellow house or this blue house? But the painting is so beautiful. And, with this one, I love, you come back and it just completely makes sense. You know what you're looking at, but it's definitely one of those cases where you get in, and what's so wonderful is just seeing her marks. And this is an acrylic. I was thinking this was gouache. Sometimes it's hard to tell, but these are some flowers on the bushes, and I love that. It seems like you maybe did the white at the end, where you're just almost drawing with the paint. It's a little bit dry, and you're doing that line work, and the energy of the sky that you're carving kind of around this tree. And it's just, first of all, it's a wonderful composition, and the organization of darks and lights, and the colors down here, but the excitement of these and the confidence of this line work is really exciting to me. And I also, can you tell this is a favorite painting of mine? Anyway, just love it. And a lot of people have been looking at this gem of the lavender farm, one of your car paintings, your plein air car paintings. And you get up close again, those line works. And there was a woman in here yesterday, she loved how you could just see the edges of it. And this is a painting, and you're not covering it up with a mat. You're seeing the energy of those strokes, and you're the hand of the artist, and you're with the artist as they're painting it. It looks like there's a little ladder back there, and there's something red back there. It almost doesn't matter what it is, but that red, activate, against the green. It's an exciting color choice, and it's this little painting, but there's a lot in that little world. But one of the larger pieces of the show, which I'd like to focus on, is Big Red Barn, which is the perfect title. This is probably one of the bolder pieces in this show. It is a watercolor with these big charcoal lines, and it just has a lot of energy. And we've talked a lot about medium and color, but I'd like to hear a little bit about the story behind this location, or maybe something about the experience of painting there, because what plein air is so different than being, here I'm talking too much, being in a studio, but you're out there in the elements. Talk about it.
Yeah, you're definitely out in the elements. And I also, along with my paints, carry a car full of different clothing scenarios so that I can be rained on and snowed on or sunned on. But this is a painting location, Finley Wildlife Preserve. up towards Corvallis area, north on Territorial. And I started this painting with watercolor, and the barn is so big. It's such an important barn because it houses thousands of dollars of farm equipment and implements, as well as the hay for that area. And I started gently, and then I just thought, I have to say how powerful and wonderful the structure of this barn is. And so I pulled out my charcoal. It's a vine charcoal, and it's extra soft. And we all know the shape of a barn. You don't have to put every nook and cranny in. You can do the outside structure. I can just talk about a tree by just 3 or 4 strokes. And I pulled down all of that fussiness and put it in, and I said, okay, I'm gonna stop. That's the painting. It's amazing to me that an artist can use strokes and marks. It's like using words, for writers. Just it's the quality of that word or the quality of the stroke.
Well, I think these are so wonderful, and it's I know plein air painting is growing in popularity, but it's something in a way I wish every kid would have a chance to do in school, and people would realize really what's involved in the complexity of painting in rain or shine. I know you said some of these paintings you actually did and it was raining and you were outside or you were in your car and the windshield wipers were going, and there's so much to know about composition and line and all these things, but you plein air painting, you're really subject to the conditions, and there's so much to choose. And I think it's wonderful what you chose to paint, but even more wonderful how you chose to do it, and your color, your ground, your use of paint. And anyway, I just want to encourage people to come down and look at these in person, because some of them are small, so they really need that up close viewing, and it's a delightful show. It's going to be up through July 10th, so you have a few weeks more to see it. Today we actually opened the gallery at noon, so we're open today noon to 5:30, and then tomorrow, which is Saturday, we're open from 10 to 4. So if you're down for Saturday market, make a day of it. Come down and see our gallery, visit White Lotus Gallery. It's just wonderful art here produced by local artists, and Betts Cole, this is at least the last couple years of her work, and it's really wonderful and inspiring for artists, emerging artists or longtime artists. You're gonna really appreciate this show. So thank you so much. Thank you to Betts Cole, and thanks for tuning in.